guys, today we are doing the mid-year book freakout tag, which I am so excited about. This is one of the videos that I love watching the most, and I think is a fun recap of what we have read so far this year. And I think especially for my channel, this is pretty fun since I am just starting to make videos. You'll kind of see where my reading has been throughout the year so far. And I also want to do a video that's like all the books I've read up to this point this year, and I think that'll also be a fun little recap moving forward into the rest of the year. Now, I will say overall, my reading this year doesn't feel like it encapsulates what I would consider my reading to be in terms of genre and types of books, but I think that's primarily due to me getting a Kindle this year and reading a lot of books on Kindle Unlimited, but definitely aren't like super monumental reads or like heavy hitters. These are all the books that I'm gonna mention. Some of them definitely could have been used for multiple prompts, but I just stuck with like one book per prompt to give more variety and make it a little bit more challenging for myself. So thank you for tuning in. So without further ado, let's get into it. Okay, so the first question is the best book you've read so far this year. And this one I did have to cheat a little bit because, as I was saying earlier, I haven't had the best reading year in terms of ratings and types of books because I have been reading so many fast-paced, silly books on my Kindle. So this one is a reread, but I read it a few years ago and it had stuck with me, and through the reread, it's definitely still my favorite, and I'll just take any excuse to talk about it. But that is For the Wolf by Hannah Witten. I have never annotated a book so much. I absolutely adore this book. Well, it's a fantasy. It's part of a duology. I'm currently reading the second book for the first time, but the tabs just perfectly match the cover. The story is so good. It is fantasy romance, so you definitely have that element. The story itself is so fun and it's so fast-paced and easy to consume, because I think a worry with a lot of romances is that there is a bunch of world building, there's a bunch of weird words, it's hard to follow along, and there is some history and world building in this book, but I don't think it overpowers the plot. And you slowly learn more as the book progresses, which I think is my favorite way that fantasy books can be structured, because you get the initial, like, this is the main character, this is their conflict. And then as the story goes on and you get introduced to a new character, you learn like what they have to do in the world. So it's kind of structured that way. It has that fairy tale element, it has the romance, it has the fantasy, the ending, the last like 50 pages, you cannot put it down. So I highly recommend this book, and this is by far the best book I've read this year. So if I wasn't gonna count this, I would honestly probably say Fool Me Once by Ashley Winstead, which is a rom-com, and it blows my mind. I've never rated one 5 stars, and this just hit so good. So this is an honorable mention. The best sequel I've read so far this year is A Court of Mist and Fury by Sarah J. Maas. I also annotated this book and I really did love it. I also rated it 5 stars. She does a great job at the world building and the characters, and especially Valeris that you get introduced to in this book. I just love its descriptions and the aesthetic and like vibes it gives off. So I absolutely love this book. I definitely plan on continuing on in the series. I will say, I don't know if I was as obsessed with this book as everyone else was, but I do think I'm going to be more of an Aquar girl, so we will see. A new release that I want to read but I haven't read yet is In the Lives of Puppets by TJ Klune. I've only read House in the Cerulean Sea by him, but I consider him one of my favorite authors. I just think all of his synopses are so fun and quirky and different, and I really appreciate that in books. Honestly, out of all of his books, this one intrigues me the most. I just think it is out there and it has to do with robots, but you have the tree houses, and I just think this is so cute. And my most anticipated release for the second half of the year, without a doubt, is In the Darkest Hour by Ashley Winstead. I truly think she is my favorite author, at least in terms of current publishing authors. This is another thriller by her, and she said something along the lines of like, this is the most risks she has taken or the most extreme book she has written. And The Last Housewife was pretty out there in like the best way possible. So I'm so excited to see what this book has in store. Okay, my biggest disappointment, but it is Love in Other Words by Christina Lauren. I just did not like this book that much. I rated it 3 stars, but the more I think about it, I think it's more of a 2. I totally understand why people love this book, and there is definitely a draw to it. Like the beginning half when they're getting to know each other and they're kids and they're like sitting in that closet and reading definitely like pulled up a lot of nostalgia and that like ideal childhood memories that you have, but I just don't really love where this story went. We have the then and now timeline, and then the then timeline when you found out what happened just rubbed me the wrong way, and I don't think was explained or hashed out enough in the now timeline for it to have been resolved appropriately. My biggest surprise this year was Fool Me Once by Ashley Winstead. This is a second chance romance, and both of our main characters are in politics, and our main female character, she's working alongside like a clean engine company, and she's trying to basically get a sort of like green energy bill passed. And I have a big passion of mine is the environment. I just think that like so many issues and trials and tribulations and emotions that we experience on this earth and things that we have to stick up for and fight for truly do not matter if we do not have a planet to experience life on. And so the fact that a rom-com that was very funny and very sweet and very easy to read discussed such an important topic in the world and also like a personal important topic was just so incredible. The main male is one of my favorites ever. So I just think it is so fun. And I knew I would like this book, but like the cover doesn't give anything away. I had no idea there was an environmental aspect to it. I got it because Ashley Winstead wrote it, and I do love her books. But it just shocked me in the most amazing way possible, and 5 stars. I don't think, like, it will be a day when I rate another rom-com not written by her 5 stars. I absolutely love this book. Please read it. It is so good. So the next question is a favorite or like a new author, whether it's a debut or just a new author to you. This book I've not yet read, but my grandma is actually borrowing the book by his that I have read, and that is Blake Crouch. But I read Dark Matter by him. It is a sci-fi. I loved how he wrote the book. He really was able to discuss true science and true scientific explanations weaved in throughout the story, where it didn't feel like a textbook or unnecessary, and it was like a paragraph explaining something. It made sense even for not understanding. Like, I don't understand quantum physics, but I did understand his verbiage, and I think that is really powerful. And I believe all of his books are sci-fi-esque, and it's a genre that I am very interested in and want to read more of. The next one is Newest Fictional Crush. And honorable mention to Mr. Ben in Fool Me Once, big fan of him, but it has to go to Knox from Juniper Hill. I just was so shocked at how perfect he was. I just absolutely love him. It was just so fun. I don't think I get fictional crushes that much, or like I can appreciate, you know, like a good guy, or appreciate why people become in love with certain characters. So the next question is a book that made me cry. Now, I don't really read sad books. I'm not opposed to them, and some of my favorite books do have a really sad element, but for the most part, I read for fun, and I think sad books just make me a bit nervous because I don't want to be sad when I'm reading. I did read an arc by a wonderful author, and I didn't really know what to expect going into it. That is Shatter Girl by Shea Miranda. I highly recommend this book. It has some really interesting and good representations, and it's more of like a slice of life story. And then a book that made me happy, I actually read very recently and I checked it out from the library, and that is A Witch's Guide to Fake Dating a Demon. In the specific town that we are in has like a higher percentage of magical beings and magical people in this town. So that part gave me Halloween Town vibes to the max, and it was so amazing. And it was just so sweet. I read it in a day. I just thought it was so fun and cute, and like the side characters and the atmosphere and the magical elements was just so fun and didn't take any brain power, and it just made me happy. I like that book, and I think she's coming out with another one, which is very exciting. I do plan on reading that. A new favorite character, and we are going back to this lovely series. This is the second book to Fool Me Once, The Boyfriend Candidate by Ashley Winstead. We are following the sister of the main girl in Fool Me Once. This is her younger sister. She is a elementary school librarian. She got broken up with by her boyfriend and is just on the path to better herself and gain more confidence. Her character arc was so sweet, and I love that she was shy and kind of timid and unsure at first, but not in a weak kind of way. She wasn't a weak woman by any means. She was just like lacked that confidence that I think a lot of us do. So it was really amazing reading about her. So Miss Alexis, you are my new favorite character. The next question is the prettiest book you have acquired this year. I chose Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies. I will say online, I don't think the cover is given enough, like you can't tell. But when I received this in person, I opened it up and just stared at it. It is so detailed and beautiful. You have like little mushrooms all over the cover. The last question I'm answering today is a book or books that you have to read by the end of the year. And every time I see people do this tag, they're like, I hate this tag, like I want to read all my books, which is true and I agree with, but there is definitely some that are highest on my priority, not necessarily on my immediate TBR for one reason or another, but that I absolutely want to read by the end of this year. So the first two is just an author that I've heard nothing but amazing things about, and that is Taylor Adams. So I have No Exit and his recent release, The Last Word. I have heard a bit of mixed things from this one in particular, but No Exit I feel like is highly regarded. It is a thriller, and I think thrillers often get the harshest ratings because people are so critical about the twists and they're so critical about the pacing of the story. And I agree, like you want to read a thriller that sits right with you. And I think for a thriller to get such like a high recognition, it's just got to be so good. And then I have to, by the end of this year, finish the ACOTAR series. It is sacrilegious that I have not. I started reading A Court of Wings and Ruin, but it was just had a really busy time in my life, and I want to annotate it and really appreciate the story because so many people want to read it for the first time again. So I just feel this pressure to give it the time and love it deserves. So I just have to re-pick this back up. The last book that I have to read by the end of the year, and this is the truest answer to this question because it is one of my few reading goals of this year, is to read the last two books in the Lord of the Rings. This is my favorite movie series. I read Fellowship of the Ring last year, near the end of last year. So it's more just taking the time to read it. And it is definitely a slow read. It takes brain power, but I have to read it. I definitely think it's going to be more fall time because of the adventure and coziness that reading this book has to be. So that is my mid-year book freakout tag. I also wanted to touch on my reading goal a bit. So as I said, I've read 51 books so far this year. My reading goal for the entire year was 75. I did not realize I was going to be reading as much as I am. And again, I'm so happy and shocked and proud of myself for doing so. I'm going to keep my Goodreads reading goal at 75, but unofficially, my new reading goal is to read 100 books by the end of the year, which I do think is possible because we're halfway through and I've read half of 100. I think that's all I got for you. I love watching these videos. This was really fun to make, again, to be able to recount and go over my reads so far this year was very fun. I will see you very soon. I'm currently filming a weekly reading vlog and I have videos lined up, so I will be posting more regularly and I will see you very soon. Bye!